As Salima mentioned, Ukrainian troops moving into the town of Bucha, northwest of Kyiv, discovered dozens of bodies on the streets. Ukrainian officials again say they are civilians. The discovery comes as the UN is warning that the civilian death count is likely much higher than what we understand it to be. Matilda Bogner is the head of the UN's human rights monitoring mission in Ukraine. I spoke to her earlier about what her team is seeing on the ground. A warning, of course, that some of the details here and images may be disturbing. Matilda Bogner, thank you for being here with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Your team has now been on the ground monitoring and verifying what's happening. What can you tell us in terms of civilian casualties and whether things are actually likely worse than what we've been hearing in the news?
Yes, unfortunately, every day the civilian casualties are increasing. The numbers are going up. The numbers that we record don't show the full picture because we have to fully verify each individual casualty, and we know that there are more than those that we have verified so far. But we have over 3,000 casualties documented, which is over 1,200 deaths, and then the rest are people who are injured. But we know that the numbers are a lot higher, and in particular because in areas where there are very severe hostilities going on, for example, Mariupol, which is the best known case, but not the only place, it's a bit like a black hole. It's very difficult to get information from these areas. There's no electricity, communications have been cut off, and so it's difficult to collect and to fully verify the casualties from those areas. And we know that the casualties are high in those areas. But so it means that there are thousands of casualties that have happened in just over a month. So it's very high levels of civilian casualties in the country.
You've mentioned Mariupol there, as you say, probably the most widely known case of people being isolated and attacks happening there. You've reported that there is growing evidence of mass graves. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, we have documented evidence of improvised graves. These are graves that have been put together by, have been organized by local authorities and volunteers and so on to deal with people who are dying there, but who they can't bury in the ordinary graveyards because it's too dangerous to take them there. So they have dug long graves and have been burying people in there. We're aware of at least 3 of these larger graves, but we know that people have been burying the dead also in gardens, in other spaces. You're just with 1, 2, maybe three bodies.
There have been lots of negotiations around humanitarian corridors to allow people to escape, but much of the time that has not actually been respected. And I wonder how concerning it is for you that there doesn't seem to be a desire to help people get out.
Yes, this creates a very difficult humanitarian situation for the civilians. Civilians under international humanitarian law should have the right to have food, to have water, to have the basic necessities. And if they're not able to leave an area, then these should be brought into them. But the best solution for people in an area like Mariupol will be that they are able to freely leave the area to find a safer area in which to be. Unfortunately, it's the most vulnerable people who remain in a city like Mariupol. Others have found ways, often dangerous, but they have found ways to leave. And those who remain behind are the elderly, are people with disabilities, or people who, for other reasons, just have not been able to make use of transport and so on to leave the city.
How difficult is it to do your work as events are unfolding? And I guess how important is it that you are there right now as it's occurring?
It is difficult. It is difficult to reach out to people, particularly in these areas that are under very severe hostilities. It's also difficult to reach out to people in areas that have been occupied, for example, by the Russian Federation, because people are often fearful to speak and to speak openly. But we have been working in Ukraine since 2014. We have solid networks across the country. A lot of people know about our work and trust our work and therefore do speak to us. We have had to move a lot of our staff because of safety concerns away from the areas with severe hostilities, but we are able to reach out to a lot of areas of the country. We have just done a mission to Dnipro in the center of Ukraine, and have been speaking to IDPs, people who have just fled from areas like Mariupol and other areas of severe hostilities. We've also been able to start doing visits to prisoners of war to check on their situation and compliance with the international humanitarian law and human rights. And we see it as incredibly important that a body such as the UN, that is an independent body and an impartial body, is able to collect information in an environment like this. We document, we put out credible information, and this can be the basis both for preventing further violations, but also for ensuring future accountability.
Well, I was going to just end on that if I could, because Canada is sending additional investigators to the International Criminal Court to investigate war crimes. I know the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights says that what is happening does consist of war crimes, that those are occurring inside the country. So what is your message to people watching this unfold, knowing that is what appears to be, according to some people, happening?
Well, accountability is incredibly important. We believe that our work is in support of future accountability in the country, but we hope that it's also in support of prevention, because right now violations are ongoing and we want to see them stop. We want to see them reduce and stop as quickly as possible. So it's really important to communicate to anyone who has influence over the situation, to both stop the conflict altogether, but also within the current confines of the conflict to stop the violations that are taking place.
Matilda Bogner, thank you for making the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks.